Can you tell the future? You know, like crystal ball, talking to spirits, that kind of thing. Do you hold yourself in the same esteem as people like Nostradamus or Baba Vanga, or even Matt Groening, the guy who created The Simpsons? Throughout history, people have claimed to predict the future. If you saw my video where I'm dressed like Marty McFly, you know that for years and years, people have assumed that by this stage in history, we would have been in a chrome-covered futuristic utopia. Now, I can tell you, I've been to some of the biggest cities in the world recently, and there are no robot butlers. The streets just smell like piss. I really don't know what else to tell you. They need more public toilets in Paris. They need that. For those of you who don't know much about predicting the future, Nostradamus was a French apothecary and astrologer. He used incredibly loose terminology to predict some of the biggest events in history, or what people can perceive as him predicting them, I guess. In a prediction allegedly about King Henry II of France, Nostradamus wrote, "The young lion will overcome the older one on the field of combat in a single battle. He will pierce his eyes through a golden cage, 2 wounds made 1, then he dies a cruel death." I mean, okay. Lo and behold, however, King Henry II in 1559 was participating in a jousting tournament, dueling against Gabriel de Montgomery. It's a real rich guy's name. During their final pass, Montgomery's lace shattered and splintered through the king's visor, injuring his eye and temple. King Henry II died after agonizing injuries about 11 days later. However, this prediction was only attributed to Nostradamus as it was published 55 years after it actually happened in 1614. This is also over 70 years after Nostradamus died as well, so, I mean, yeah, those found notebooks with all the predictions in them, I'm calling bullshit. He also potentially predicted the angry, mustachioed Austrian painter. But again, this is all speculation. I'm not going to spend my time arguing predictions with someone who probably didn't wash their hands a whole lot. Baba Vanga, however, the blind prophet of the Balkans, also predicted some things, but a lot of them were predicted after they happened, or doctored predictions after her death mixed in with Russian propaganda. Let's just take a second and see if we believe any of that. Communism? But we're not here to talk about a crazy old Frenchman or an equally crazy Russian lady. We're here to talk about a card game. And not just any card game. It wasn't Pokemon, it wasn't Magic the Gathering, it wasn't time to... In the same vein as our aforementioned prophets, this particular card game was said to have predicted certain parts of the future. It was called Illuminati, the New World Order. So straight off the rip, my confidence is not insanely high. But depending on who you ask, it may or may not have predicted 9/11, the Orange Head of State, COVID, as well as the Capitol riot insurrection. So today, after all that intro, we are getting into, did this 90s card game really predict the future?
The past is sacred. I found more than I expected.
Are you chronically online? I know I am. I am a 30-year-old man who really should not know what the latest trends on TikTok are. But before all of this, right? Before phones, before social media, before streaming, like 20 years prior to the turn of the century, where you actually had to get on a bike and ride to your friend's house to see if they were home because you couldn't even text them. And before you go, okay, boomer, I was born in 95, okay? I'm young. I'm young like you guys. I'm not complaining, on the other hand. I still did have to go and visit my friends on a bike and wasn't able to text them. The amount of times I almost got hit by a car and didn't tell my parents is probably a little bit concerning, but you know, I'm still young. I'm still, lower back is in tip-top shape. Anyway, it's the early 80s. Madonna is on the radio, leg warmers are on the youth, dial-up internet had not even been invented yet. The internet itself was essentially ARPANET for the academic and research institutions. So there is no YouTube rabbit holes for your conspiracy uncle to be influenced by, and there is no Reddit for the incel huddled masses. But down in Austin, Texas, the people at Steve Jackson Games were cooking up something. And that something would soon be well looked into by people that use both of those sites for conspiracy and incel behavior. Illuminati, the New World Order is a satirical collectible card game where you play as a secret society trying to manipulate world events and dominate the planet. Okay, let's keep going. You get to play as groups like the Bavarian Illuminati, the Servants of Cthulhu, and the Discordians. That's not a joke, by the way, that's real. Yeah, it's the Discordians. The Bermuda Triangle, UFOs, and the Gnomes of Zurich. All of these are actual playable factions. It's like D&D for tinfoil hat wearers. The goal is to control the media, rig elections, unleash plagues, crash markets, and do whatever it takes to run the world from the shadows. So a BlackRock Rothschild speedrun. It was inspired in part by a 1975 parody novel series called the Illuminatus Trilogy. Authored by Robert Shea and Robert Anton Wilson, It's a sprawling satirical postmodern science fiction adventure that dives into the intricate tapestry of conspiracy theories, both real and fabricated, infusing them with themes of drugs, sex, magic, numerology, counterculture, and Discordianism. The original trilogy comprised of The Eye in the Pyramid, books 1 to 2, The Golden Apple, book 3 and part of book 4, and Leviathan, the remainder of book 4 and book 5. It was written between 1969 and 1971 and published in 1975. It earned the Prometheus Hall of Fame Award in 1986, which is like the Pulitzer Prize for virgins. It spawned stage and audio adaptations, along with considerable influence over contemporary writers, artists, musicians, and even game designers like our mate Steve Jackson. Now, at first glance, the game looks fun. It's over-the-top, satirized conspiracy theories. Once you start flipping through the cards, that's where it gets a little bit really crazy. Let's start with the greatest hits. Firstly, the card Terrorist Nuke. This one shows a massive explosion halfway up a skyscraper, which is placed right next to an identical skyscraper, which, I mean, to me, from the outside looking in, looks like 9/11. But, you know, I could be wrong. The card was made 7 years before the attack, so not part of the original series, but in an expansion pack of the Illuminati game. Coincidence? Maybe. Fodder for middle-aged tinfoil hat wearers? Absolutely. To add insult to injury, there was another card in the exact same expansion pack that showed a very similar attack on the Pentagon, and if you know anything about what happened in September of 2001, you'll know that there was also something that happened in the Pentagon. So, at least a whole bunch of national debt got erased, right? Another one of these cards shows the White House with barbed wire and fencing all around it, which almost exactly happened in 2020 during the BLM protests, when the White House was surrounded by chain link fences and blockades. But it doesn't stop there. Let's keep going. There was a card called Charismatic Leader. It features a blonde-haired demagogue shouting to a crowd of hypnotized followers. This came out when the former host of The Apprentice was actually bankrupt and a casino punchline. But sadly, in hindsight, kind of looks like a bit of a prophecy. There's a card for an epidemic that shows a bottle of disinfectant, needles, and piles of dead bodies, almost a full mirror of the COVID-19 pandemic, again back in 2020. There's one called the March on Washington, which shows people picketing outside of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. There is, however, on this card a lack of dudes screaming about stolen elections, so make of that what you will. There's also a market manipulation card, a media control card, and a Plague of Demons card, which, I mean, all kind of speak for themselves as far as recent media goes. There was also an aggressively graphic card satirizing political correctness, which featured two men hanging by their necks, one of them for using the wrong pronouns, the other for eating meat, which for the early 90s doesn't mean anything, but now is an incredibly dangerous satirization of how political correctness goes. My hands are getting sweaty, dude. There's a Hillary Clinton card, an Al Gore card, Saddam Hussein card, tech companies, the UN, Boy Scouts, even a card where demons literally descend on Washington. At this point, you're probably thinking, this is probably the most cursed deck of cards I've ever seen in my entire life. Either that, or someone down in Austin, Texas has a time machine and they're here right now going backwards and forwards and then making little cards out of it. It actually gets weirder than this. In 1990, just before the game is re-released, the Secret Service raided the offices of Steve Jackson Games. They stormed in, seized computers, and took files, including some related to the Illuminati. Naturally, this set off conspiracy theorists like fireworks in a meth lab.
See, they don't want you to know that the lizard people are secretly running NASCAR.
But as much as that would make an amazing premise for a Netflix documentary, the truth is a little bit less interesting. One of Jackson's employees, this bald blimp of an individual by the name of Lloyd Blankenship, was a hacker. He ran a bulletin board that published stolen information about how the US 911 emergency system worked. The Secret Service got tipped off, showed up with a warrant, grabbed him and anything in the building that looked even vaguely electrical. So they weren't trying to bury the truth about the Illuminati, they were just doing what the government always does, overreacting to nerds with unlimited internet who just basically only exist in chat rooms. Still, the raid itself made the game even more legendary, because people weren't now just treating it like satire, they were treating it like it was a blueprint or a playbook for the global elite. Sales went up by 35% once that news broke in 1991. But surely someone has reached out to Steve, right? And to be honest, you're probably thinking, you got to talk to Greg from the Wiggles, right? So Steve Jackson must be a cinch. He was not available for comment at all. but in the next video I have a very special guest and I cannot wait for you guys to see it. So if you haven't already, please hit like and subscribe. You're going to enjoy it. Anyway, Steve Jackson, the game designer from the very beginning, always maintained that the game was meant to be funny, satirical, nothing else. It was based on himself reading about tons of conspiracies, laughing at them, and being like, hey, what if we made this into a card game? The illustrator John Grigney admitted that the terrorist nuke card was actually inspired by fears of post-Soviet terrorism, not psychic visions of Al-Qaeda. And Blankenship, the guy that got arrested, when asked about the card game, said it's basically that anyone can be a psychic if you say something akin to a leader will die in the Middle East next year. Based on America's exploits, you have a very high chance of getting that right. In other words, as I learned from Chupple's video about the Simpsons predictions, amazing video, definitely go check it out. If you make enough outrageous predictions often enough, eventually one of them is going to stick, especially in a world that's already teetering on the edge of absurdity. The thing is, this game was well ahead of its time. It satirized a media-driven, paranoid, globalized world where conspiracy theories become mainstream currency, long before Facebook comments, QAnon threads, and the dude on TikTok saying the moon is a government hologram. And today, if you wanted to get Illuminati New World Order the card game, it's unfortunately out of print. But if you want a sealed deck of these cards, be prepared to drop $2,000 US for that. I tried to get a deck of cards for this video and I couldn't find them anywhere, because now it's not just a game, it's a pop culture relic. A cursed collector's item, or a cardboard version of the Voynich manuscript, except with more jokes and fewer demon drawings, I guess. So did this game predict the future after all we've learned today? Honestly, kind of. Not because this was magic, not because Steve Jackson had a time machine or any of that sort of stuff. It's because this world is predictably crazy. Life imitates art, but sometimes it can be the other way around, right? If you satirize the future hard enough, sometimes the timeline can fold into the bit. The Illuminati, if they do exist, didn't write the game, but I can almost guarantee they wish they had. Steve Jackson just beat them to it with a printing press and a good sense of humor. If anyone knows where to get these cards, please let me know, because I'd really like a deck of them. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, new videos every fortnight. The next video is going to be amazing, and I really can't wait to show you guys. It's another pop culture historical cornerstone. I love this topic so much, and the person I've got coming to talk to me about it is one of the main people that was involved. If it is not out by Halloween, it is Halloween themed, so I'll leave it at that. Put your speculations in the comments. I am excited for this one. If you want to join me over on Patreon, it's like $2 New Zealand a month. These are my Patreons here. Honestly, you guys are amazing. It's allowed me to get a few more bits and pieces. To be honest, I'm probably going to get a new tripod, because at the moment it's standing on a headphone stand, just so it's like eye height. And obviously, being that I'm playing that festival in Stewart Island this weekend, I'm not really going to have a lot of time to do a green screen video and really, you know, get my editing going. So I appreciate you all so much. Thank you for 6,000 subscribers. I feel like we're growing, like every fortnight there's a new milestone to hit. So I'm incredibly grateful. We're on ways to 100,000. I'm very excited. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe, drop a comment. Let me know what you want to deep dive pop culture history thing into. Peace and have a good day.
The past is sacred. I found more than I expected.